So welcome to the Node.js Technical Steering Committee meeting for the 21st of June, 2023. We'll follow our standard approach of going through the issues tagged in the issue that was open in the TSC repo, which is issue 1404. Before we get started, does anybody have any announcements they'd like to share?
New release of Node.js, secret release 16.20.1, 18.16.1, and 20.3.1.
Thanks.
Folks, just a quick reminder that the call for proposal for NodeConf.eu closes at the end of the month. So there is still a little bit of time, and you should be able to send one. Okay, so please do if you didn't yet. If you haven't yet, there is plenty. We have selected a few sessions, but there is plenty still, plenty of space still. So if you have anything interesting about Node Core, Node.js, or something new to talk about, please send your proposal. Thank you.
Michael, you don't need to worry about attendance in the minutes. I'll take care of that.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay. Right. Any other announcements people would like to share? Okay, if not, let's move on to the CPC and board meeting updates. I guess, Matteo, any updates from the board front?
Yes, we have an update, and also to the CPC, the thing that I'm talking about encompasses both. There have been some discussions on changing the bylaws of the foundation and the CPC, and change a little bit board representation of the CPC inside the to the board of the board, and making it so right now there is a third CPC seat that currently is not filled because it's part of the individual memberships that do not exist at all. So basically taking that seat and repurpose it and allocating it to the CPC. This is going to happen soon. And then we get another one, and then find some long-term solution that allows essentially a CPC representation to grow on the board together with the growth of the foundation, essentially. Because right now it will be at cap, and the foundation could keep growing for various reasons. So yeah, that's the major update, and this is scattered across a few issues. So if you don't have the links, I can probably comment them, Rich. And apart from that, that is the major one. Various events coming up for the foundation. So if there are opportunities to speak there are plenty. Okay. It's probably important that we start to make plans if we want to do, and if when and want to do a collab summit in fall. So this is a question for all of you. And yeah,
I think
that's
the collab summit is like from the last CPC meeting, Claudio was going to start coordinating that, and they've got space at the OpenJS world in Bilbao.
Yeah, no, I absolutely. I know yes, it also matters if the people are going to go there to do the collab summit. Okay, this is the question of it's that's the question essentially, more than anything. Okay, if enough people from Node would be there to have meaningful sessions, this is the question mark on. We had enough mass in Vancouver. That's what I'm saying. And the question is, do we have enough mass in Bilbao to do that? That's the point.
And that the Collaborator Summit, if I've been following and understand correctly, the Collaborator Summit this time is node specific, or that's the intention, that it's not a broader net like it may have been in the past. There's also a number of sort of I'll call them big, boring administrative things that the cross project council is discussing, but one that I want to call attention to because I think that some people might have opinions about, excuse me, is the issue of balancing privacy versus transparency with the travel fund. A lot of people might not care at all about this one way or the other, but people who do care will care a lot about the ability to see how the travel funds are being spent and who's getting them versus not having to share that you're getting travel funds in a public GitHub repository and how much you're getting and all that sort of stuff. So if anybody wants to look at the discussion on that or even chime in on it, it's in the OpenJS Foundation Cross-Project Council repository, issue number 397. I'll throw a link in the minutes.
Perfect. Yeah. Because yeah, definitely there might be some changes on that front. And so that's a good opportunity to get your views heard. Anything else, Rich, on the CPC front that you wanted to update on?
Nothing leaping to mind, and you'd think I'd learned my lesson to prepare by now, but I have not.
Well, usually the most important things bubble up to the top of your mind anyway. Okay, so we might as well move on to the issues tagged for the agenda then. The first one is number 2860. So Richard, you tagged this for the agenda. And we had a bit of a discussion in a previous meeting on this, and I don't think, but no resolution. From your perspective, is there, what should we discuss this week?
I don't know. It remains to be an issue. We have had one person ask how. Luke Karras from NPM volunteered to be like an additional maintainer. I don't know what the process for that would be. Maybe get him in touch with Rod, but yeah, this remains an issue. So yeah, I don't know what we're going to do about this. At least we have one person that's sort of volunteered to help out, but I don't know if it seems a bit much to lump on just one person. So we do need some sort of strategy with this. And if it is try and find volunteers, then maybe that's what we go down. I think last time we discussed whether we put the module into some sort of, minimum support kind of, it's there, we'll patch it if there's issues, but no active development unless volunteers. That may be an option. I don't know. So yeah, I do not know how we make a decision on this. Because I don't, this is a problem and I don't think we have a solution for it. So yeah, suggestions welcome. Yeah.
I think it's like Rod said he doesn't have time, so we should almost act as if we should keep Rod in the loop, but like, what if Rod didn't just was like, hey, I'm not involved anymore at all? What would we do as a TSC, right? And that's where, Richard mentioned, well, we could say like, we're going to do the minimal maintenance, and we could say, well, we make everybody on the TSC like maintainers who can review and publish or whatever, because somebody's got to be able to do it, right? And it's basically a core piece that we need to have maintained, and so I don't know how we come to a conclusion on it, but it's something like Richard said, we do have to figure out what we're going to do or not do. I guess maybe in the past, we've tried to get a subset of the TSC, like instead of dealing with it in these meetings, on the agenda, we could try and set up something where we have a subset of the TSC get together in a meeting specifically to discuss this issue. Does that make sense to people? So I guess I'll volunteer to send an email to the TSC mailing list to say, hey, who on the TSC is interested, able to, come to a session where we'll discuss this issue in specific. And we'll see. If nobody says yes, then we'll have to bring it back to this meeting. If we get enough people to discuss it, then we can go from there. Does that make sense?
I think if there's a specific PRs that are waiting for a review or something, that would be much easier to volunteer for.
All right, say that again.
I'm saying if there's a specific pull request or issue waiting for someone to review, that would probably be easier to volunteer to than to generally volunteer becoming a maintainer. Like, once there's a specific thing that needs a hand.
Yeah, I guess we need somebody who's we need somebody who's looking at it in a fairly regular basis, even like, you know, because it's not like who's going to figure out that there's one PR and then get other people. Like, we need somebody who's looking at things regularly to kind of pull in other people and help and so forth. We could discuss all sorts of different options. We could say, well, like the security triage, we have a team from the TSC who rotates doing that. Or, I mean, it sounds like we have at least one volunteer, so that's a good, you know, I think we should just ask Rod, like, are you comfortable with us giving the volunteer access? He's somebody we know. They have a vested interest. I think we, you know, that could just be actioned as well. So. So maybe I'll send out that email and we can see if we get enough critical mass to have that discussion offline. Does that make sense to people? Or any other alternate suggestions? If there's no other alternate suggestions, maybe we'll go with that and see what happens. Okay, the next one is node.js /node. So libadd navigator hardware concurrency. This is 47769. If you added that, jump in, but otherwise I'm opening it up to take a look.
I think Yagi's added it. I was looking. And the question is like, I have added to the TSC label to ask for consensus regarding the navigator global class.
I guess there's some comments, complaints, but
There was a discussion, I think, Mateo, you commented regarding the navigator class, if it should be part of the node.
Yeah. Yeah, the fundamental problem is I've seen quite a lot of projects that are using navigator to detect if you're running in the browser or not. Like, this is one of the ways in which. So certain APIs makes no, like the vast majority of APIs make no sense to add in navigator. So there are other alternatives too. And it's you know, it's, I would, as I said, I wouldn't block navigator user agent, for example, but this is you know, then Shenzong is asking here, is there any use case for Node.js to implement a less precise APIs, precise when more accurate APIs are available? You know, this is a question of yes, there are a few that probably make some sense. Okay. I am happy to lift my objection here on this if you think it's cool. Mostly my main problem is My main problem on this is is that it provides some writable specific APIs, and the writable APIs are problematic. Apart from that, I'm cool with adding as many readmes, read-only API.
So I'll add this as a no need to put this in the minutes because I'm going to drop it as a comment in the pull request right now. But I think that if we add this, I don't have an opinion as to whether we should or shouldn't. I can see the argument for both. But if we add this, I think we should do it in a Semper Major, of course.
Yes.
But also, in addition to doing it in a major release, it should be experimental. Even if it's without a flag or whatever. And I know that this gets into a whole other discussion, but the reason is that if it causes widespread breakage, we want to be able to pull it out.
Yeah.
And removing it would be Semper Major. So by marking it experimental, we sort of signal that, we might actually remove this or make breaking changes to it without a major release.
Sure.
So the concern is that it would like conflict with other polyfills?
Yeah, although Colin put something in the chat just now that I think is important, which might mitigate what I just said, which is Colin says that it's worth noting that it's not a valid, that checking for Navigator is not a valid check for if you're running the browser, because Dino, I never know how to say it, supports it. And I wouldn't be surprised if Bun supported it too, but it probably doesn't, but it might. Yeah. And Moshe says that we should run SIGIM, which we are supposed to do for all Semper Major changes. So yeah, definitely run SIGIM before landing it. And I will try to encapsulate all three of those comments in the pull request, but if I fail, please follow up with a comment.
Okay, so I guess it was on the agenda because it was kind of like, I guess because Matteo, you were objecting. It sounds like maybe you're willing to.
I lifted my objection. I'm good.
Okay. Okay, so objection lifted, discussion can continue in the issue itself. Maybe I'll ask in the issue as well, but like if we implement part of an API, is there any expectation that then they're going to get the full API versus just one bit of it?
This is my main concern. So it's apparently there isn't, but if it's individual stuff on it, I have no big problem.
Right. Okay.
There was a comment about one of the APIs making it into some minimal proposal for the Winter CG group. So it'll be sort of recommended across runtimes. And I think that I could get behind, if there was a subset of Navigator that made it into something like a Winter CG proposal, that would be much easier to get behind in terms of then we are supporting a sort of cross runtime set. But at the moment, there's no sort of, I think the expectation that we automatically follow a browser API where it doesn't make sense is not a sort of automatic. Yes, it's sort of case by case, but it'd be much easier to consider if it was part of something like Winter CG proposal or something like that.
Okay, I guess any other discussion on this one before we should move on? Okay, if not, the next one is, and I guess, sorry, I will take it off the TSC agenda as well. Since we've discussed and resolved. So, okay. Okay, the next one is remaining OSSF funding. I think we did discuss this perhaps,
yeah.
earlier, but there weren't necessarily enough people there. So Raphael, do you want to?
Well, actually, it's just to summarize. We have some fundings to focus on security, and we have discussed it a lot how to use it. But I don't think all the TSC were in the meeting or solved that issue. So just a heads up that we have that funding and we are tempted to use it in the security space. And one of the if we don't have any objection, the next step would be to ask to the OpenJS how the contract with contractors work or something like that.
I think we should do that, and we should do it relatively soon. Robin mentioned to me that she was under the impression that we were not particularly enthusiastic about using those funds, and I don't think that's right. I think we're mostly just not sure how to use the funds. So let's ask a bunch of questions and find out.
Okay, so I think this is like after this meeting, unless anybody expresses any concerns, we'll move forward with the proposal that's there. Do you think, Rich, we should, I guess, ask Robin directly, like mention her in the issue, or is there a way that we should go through the CPC? What's your thoughts on that?
You would think I'd know the answer to that. I would say go ahead and mention Robin, and if that's not the right thing to do, and maybe with a phrase that says, can you point us in the right direction if you're not the person we should be pinging? But that's what I would do anyway.
Okay, I will just say okay, afterwards I'll go through and I can mention her and I'll highlight the two questions that we're hoping they can help us with.
Okay, so you're taking that task, Michael.
Unless, yeah, I'll do
Okay,
that
great.
unless you're willing to do it. If you are,
No. I just want to make sure. I wasn't sure if Raphael was going to do it or who, but just as long as we know exactly who's going to do it, so that everybody doesn't think somebody else is going to do it. Michael Dawson will do it. Sounds great to me.
I'm putting it in the. I volunteered too quickly, but anyway, I will mention Robin with the questions, and we'll go from there. Okay, so we can move on to the next issue, which was number 1178. So Clyde tools behind a Node.js namespace. I think we've made progress on that. So we've got one namespace, we've got a request for another namespace. I think we've mostly left this on, just waiting to see if we can have a discussion to see if, from Daniel's perspective, since she added this issue, if we've covered off everything she was looking for the TSC to discuss. So I'd suggest maybe we leave it on the agenda for one more round and to see if we can do that, unless anybody else has more context or whatever to share. Okay, then moving on. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say it was added. The TSC agenda label was added more than a month ago. So, yeah, but that's fine. Actually, I started to say that, and I realized, it's fine. We can just leave it on for another week, or maybe drop a comment in there asking, whatever. Yeah, let's just keep moving forward with it.
Okay. The next one is a Node.js admin. This is number 802. So this was a suggestion to archive the Node.js help repo. I know, Rich, you'd summarize the based on the discussion that we pretty much were trending towards. Well, that we said we weren't going to do that. I don't know if there's been any more discussion since then.
And Girish just dropped off, which
okay.
Oh, he's back. Okay, he's back. So it seems like Girish and others are believe that we should keep the help repo around, and I absolutely am going to defer to the people who are much more active in that repository than I am. And it seems like everybody else is as well. So I do think that Claudio's efforts for the moment are going to be towards improving the support.md file, which I think is valuable, or at least certainly not, it won't hurt. And we'll go from there, and just trying to figure out how to best support users, or at least how to best get users the support they need. I don't know if Jurish or anyone else has anything they'd like to add to that.
I'm sorry, I had a power failure. I got the context, but was there any specific question to me?
Nothing specific, no. But I don't know.
I think we've just agreed that, you being one of the active people, along with a few others, have said, hey, we should leave it the way it is. And I think we've all agreed to line up with that, and the issue's closed.
Okay. Yeah, one of the, not direct, but some long-standing action which I put on myself would be to revive the help repo activities, to see how we can get more people engaged on that, either through some advocacy activities, spreading awareness in all the possible forums.
Sounds good. Okay, so at this point, we can flip over to looking at the strategic initiatives. So I am looking through the people we have here. I think. So Chenzong, I don't know if there's an update on Shadow Realm that you want to share.
Sorry, I don't have updates this week.
Okay, Joy, anything on startup snapshot you'd like to share?
We are landing or like adding support for snapshots in the single executable applications. So if anyone wants to take a look, there is a pull request. I'll paste that into the doc. That's all for snapshot,
Okay.
I guess.
Thanks. Okay, next 10, the PR is open for the results from the Node.js survey. It's actually got some quite interesting information in there. So I'd recommend, if you're interested, you can take a look. It's a pretty quick read. There's a nice summary, a deck with the sort of answers to the well-defined questions, and then there's a doc with the sort of a sanitized version of the write-in questions. The two ones we had the most write-in question answers for, because they were really just open-ended questions, were challenges related to ESM. And so there's lots of good write-ins there. We should make sure that people who've been working on ESM are aware of that and read through. The other one was, we'd asked, like, do you have any problems with Node.js? And there's quite a lot of write-in, I think over 100 write-in answers there too. So it's interesting to go through there and see the sort of common themes, to make sure that we're thinking, aware of all those, or if there's anything else that really stands out. So I will add the link for that in the minutes afterwards as well, in terms of the results. I guess that takes us to the end, and let me just go back, because sometimes I miss it. I want to make sure that there were no comments on the issue itself in terms of updates. Okay, yeah, no, and I don't see any other updates. I think that takes us to the end of the strategic initiative updates and to the end of our agenda. So I guess the question is, oh, I see, Robert, you have your hand up.
Yeah, since we have a little extra time, there is one issue that is not on the agenda. I just briefly wanted to mention, if anyone has more thoughts on. So in the Docker image for Node 20.3, the base OS image has been upgraded, and that breaks on older Docker versions, Docker daemon versions running out in the ecosystem. So we have a lot of because it's not that old Docker daemon version. It's actually a quite recent one where it
It's
doesn't.
sorry, Robert, is the Docker a version that is installed on LTS Ubuntu. Okay, to be clear, it's not so old. It's the version, the latest LTS Ubuntu ships with that Docker version that is broken. So for us at least.
And the combination of this base OS upgrade in the latest official Docker node image and this Docker daemon version, the combination of those just crashes Node straight on. It just dies. And I don't know what jurisdiction we have over the, the official Docker images for Node, but I do see this as a quite significant problem, especially for enterprise users. And I'm not quite sure what we think about that. Yeah, we have a hand up.
Right, so I don't think we've got anyone from the working group. So the Docker images is under a working group, which means we have actually given that working group full autonomy over the images, and their position is that if you are really worried about the distribution that the images are using, you should be using a tag that has that in. I mean, that's their position. So while we can make, we can have opinions and make those known, the actual images themselves are all part of that, under the remit of that working group. It's a devolved responsibility under their the words
Charter.
Yeah, the charter, that's the word. So yeah, in terms of who's responsible for it, it is that working group. Unfortunately, nobody on that working group, as far as I know, is here today, well, or even on the TFC. So yeah.
Is that issue completely divorced from the IO ring?
Yeah. So there's actually two issues that occurred in 20.3.
Yep.
The IO ring issue, we have a way forward, so I think that's going to be sorted.
Okay.
But this base image upgrade, together with quite recent versions of Docker, is, in my opinion, a quite significant problem. And I just want to see if there's anyone else that sees this as a problem, or is it just me? Because in theory, I think the working group is right. If you're if you care about the base image, then you should pin it. But I still think, the default image should work in 99% of users' setup.
Well, the other question is, has anyone reported this to Ubuntu?
But this is not just a problem with Ubuntu. I mean, there's a lot of people not using Ubuntu that also have this issue.
I think it's a common problem that, like, if you use like a latest kernel or something, and correct me if I'm getting this wrong, but like if you use a newer kernel with an older Docker, this can happen, right? And so you have to then use a newer Docker that's, so it's gonna be a recurring issue, and anybody has nothing to do with Node. If you want to run that newer, run something with that newer version of Debian, you would run into this problem. It's just that the default tag uses that newest thing, and so we're basically forcing people to run into it, right?
Yeah, I would, if I'm a user, I would expect, if I update from node 20.2 to 20.3, then I wouldn't have these kind of issues. Now, if I were upgrading from node 20 to 21, then, this can happen. I wouldn't be so surprised as a user, but I think we're kind of, breaking the ecosystem in what users see as a Semver minor update.
Right. It's kind of, I guess the discussion is that Semver minor, that tag is like, it's
But on
the,
the other hand, node versions do not tie up nicely with the life cycles of Linux distributions. So, you know, we've been conservative in build as to what we build releases on to try and sort of make sure we don't end up on an end of life operating system. But, you know, the reverse is true for, you know, if you're producing Docker images, whatever Linux distro you've picked as your base OS, you know, you probably have to consider the lifetime of that and the lifetime of say the node major version if you were going to start making assertions about not changing the distro versions.
I'm just saying this is a situation that is unnecessary. Like Bullseye is not such an old distro. We could easily stay on Bullseye for the life cycle of Node 20 and then update to a newer distro in the next Node.js Ember major. So this is a kind of an issue of our own making.
So I'm not sure that we're going to be able to do anything in this meeting along that. And all I can suggest is continue participating in the issue. And if the issue, I have seen some people from the working group comment in that issue. It really needs to be taken to that working group because it's their decision as to what, you know, their policy in terms of what goes into their images, the Docker images. Unless the TSC is willing to try and revoke their charter, but that seems really heavy-handed. And you know, I don't think we're in that situation. So
I think what I'm trying to get at is to notify you all that there is an issue here. I see it quite serious. And if somebody else also sees this serious, please participate in the conversation on the issue that I linked in the chat.
okay, anything more we should discuss on? Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, the issue that I was discussing with is on the node repo, not on the Docker repo.
There's
The
a Docker node repo.
Yeah, it's in the Docker node repo. Sorry.
Yeah. It's the, I sent the first message in the chat. It's the avoid upgrading base OS image during the life of major version of Node.js is the name of the issue. And it was Targos that created.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah, this one. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I'm good.
Okay. Any other issues that we should discuss before we close out for this week?
Yeah, I have a quick one. I'll post. Oops, sorry. I'll post this. I've been looking at some of our Cloudflare settings, and we actually have two subdomains for node.js.org, modules.node.js.org and packages.node.js.org. If you actually try and go to them, they're broken at the moment due to Cloudflare security policies. So I'm proposing that we actually get rid of them because they are broken at the moment. We haven't actually seen anyone complain about them. And rather than trying to make them, the original intent seems to be that those redirected to npmjs.org. But rather than try and recreate those in Cloudflare page rules, I'm proposing we just drop the subdomain redirect. So in the future, anyone going to modules.node.js.org or packages.node.js.org will just be redirected to the main Node.js website. I've seen some people have responded to the issue saying agreeing we should just remove them. So I'm just raising that for awareness. If anyone has any reason to to not go ahead with deleting that, please make your views known. Otherwise, in the next few days, I'll probably just go ahead and remove those aliases. It sounds like it may have been broken for a number of years now, so it doesn't sound like anything will be lost by removing those, but I will mention it just for awareness.
Okay, thanks for the update. Anybody else have anything that we should chat about before we close out this week? Okay, so it sounds like we do have some private business, so if people can stick around, I will stop the stream. And